I'm 36 and my wife is 36 too. And as long as you work out, you're not going to run into that problem, you know?
Well, I get
If
it, but
you're
that's
40
kind
and you
of
give up, I mean, then maybe.
then maybe. Those are just listen. I thought it was a good rule to have, and then again, you can make individuals. So we're broadcasting now. We're just not across all the channels yet, but we will be. Just giving you a heads up before, because I know I say inappropriate shit all the time.
Well, I don't adhere to the PC craziness. I mean, I am respectful, but I'm still human. So
Yeah, no. I
yeah,
try my best, but let me tell you, if I go a day and I don't piss somebody off, it's not a good day.
man,
I, I'm all, I'm all about pissing people off, and my friends even more. Uh, I have certain friends. They're like, no, anybody else would kick your ass. I'm like, listen, you're welcome to. I don't.
hey, if you can't handle me at 100%, I don't water myself down. I drink straight.
I ain't gonna water myself down. I am who I am. So,
That's
are
what
you
makes
ready?
it great, right? So as
Exactly.
long as we're not out there like blatantly saying completely disrespectful, intolerant
Oh
things.
no, no, no.
Hey,
I'm not. I'm not disrespectful.
yeah.
But I'm gonna bust your balls.
Hey, that's what it's about. If we can't laugh at each other in this country, that's why we are where we are. You can't say shit. But I think that when there are common grounds built through humor, and we can all laugh at each other, like I'm the first one to go, dude. I suck at basketball. I just do. It's just inherently not in my skill set. And you know what? I don't know. I'm also got long hair and I'm blonde and I'm Polish. So I'll make fun of myself for being good.
Man, you know what? You're going to give me a lot to talk about over the next hour and a half or so. And I haven't even introduced us yet, but I'm watching people jump in here and we've already said some pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to just rock it really quick because people are used to it. And then we're going to keep going.
Go.
And we are back. Here I am, Fly Navarro, with the No BS World Tour. Today I am joined by John from Hook and Barrel. John, how are you today, sir?
Man, I am great. Just got back from Orange Beach, did a little fishing down there, refreshed. I think as a business owner, you come back usually to a storm of things you got to catch up with. But man, I feel great today. How are you, Fly?
I am doing incredible. And we were talking about pissing people off. And I've already got some comments coming in. Lynn Henderson has told me that I haven't pissed her off yet. But Captain Curtis has come in. You do piss people off. And Captain Curtis is who I go giant tuna fishing with in Canada every year. And my job every day is to piss him off.
There you go.
So usually I try to piss him off at least 3 times before sunrise. And sometimes I get more than 3 times before that. So
Cool.
hey, I was looking at your pictures while you were in Orange Beach. You went to the mullet toss contest, didn't you?
I did. I did. It was incredible. I mean, this is my first time to Orange Beach, so the Department of Tourism was kind enough to have us out and put together this itinerary of just awesome stuff, and mullet toss is one of them.
How far did you throw?
Man, okay, so here's how I did this, right?
You know what? Just the fact that you're giving me a prerequisite, you're giving me a disclaimer beforehand. I'm thinking you didn't do a very good job.
Well, listen, if you're making excuses, you're already losing in my books. But so I have a 19-month-old named Jack,
You
and
didn't throw him, did you?
almost, almost. I wanted to do the mullet toss with a baby in my arms. It doesn't get any more, mullet tossy than that. So I was holding the kid, and so I got about 60 feet or something like that. But after I reviewed the clip of me throwing it as like the proud dad I was, I'm like, yeah, I did it with my son, rock on. I noticed that his head went flying backwards, his hat came flying off, and I almost gave the kid whiplash. So my excuse is I was trying not to kill my child, but at the same time, I almost did too. So, but
That's
but it was cool. I mean,
mullet tossing is great. And it's funny because I think it was my first or second year I went to the Biloxi tournament. You get a bunch of fishermen around. It was like 2 or 3 days before fishing. We go to this place for lunch, and I can't remember I want to say it's Rosie's Chicken and Fish. It's a fish market. But they have this little cafe in the corner, and they have the best gumbo. And there's like 10 of us having lunch, and we start talking about the Floribama mullet toss. And, everybody's having a couple of beers, and next thing the testosterone starts. I can throw a mullet farther than you can. Oh, really? I can do that. So I went inside and I bought a box of frozen mullet, and we threw it in the back of the truck. We finished up lunch. We picked up a couple of pounds of cooked crawfish and I think a couple of cases of beer, and we went to the parking lot of the Golden Nugget. So here we are in the parking lot of a casino. So there's and it wasn't even the parking lot. So you have the parking garage. It's like 6 stories high. We're in an empty field. The field's like 100 yards long. We set up about midway, and just imagine like a movie, Varsity Blues, where people back up in their pickup truck, music's going, beers flowing, bunch of mullets hanging out there. And everybody has their different technique. Do I roll the mullet? Do I throw it like a football?
Oh, there's a science.
There's a science behind it. And everybody, I did not throw. I'm videoing everything. Here's my deal. I know I'm going to throw like a girl. I'm going to throw. I'm going to get 20 yards and pee down my legs. So I just say, I'm going to video it and post it up on social media for everybody. These guys are throwing and throwing and throwing. I'd say, on average, it's going 20, 30, 40 yards. These are some nice throws. Yeah. And my buddy Lucas from Kansas shows up. Now, he's tall, blonde hair fella, long arms, probably a quarterback in high school. I don't think he went to college because I remember him, on the fishing scene over the years. But, strapping guy, probably did play some quarterback. He gets this mullet, crawdad in his hand, eats the crawdad, chucks the shell, does a Happy Gilmore, like, 3-step drop back, and wings this thing. Now we have some official measures out on the field with their beer in hand. They sat there and watched this mullet go right above their head, land not just behind them, but into the parking garage. The whole thing, and he looks right straight in the camera and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, that is a new Mississippi State record," and walks away. I mean, literally mic drop the whole thing right in the parking lot.
Wow.
I was like, you know what? I'm never doing this again. There's no way I can top that story.
Dude, I think this year's record was like 195 or 198. Somebody launched it pretty damn far down the beach. So.
It's amazing. And, you can come up with all these different stories and techniques. Oh, I can do this. I can listen. There's a science behind it, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It makes for good fun. I mean, right there on the beach. And for people that don't know what we're talking about the Floribama bar in the Panhandle. It's literally half the bars in Florida, half the bars in Alabama. Right across the street is the most popular Waffle House known to man.
Yeah.
And once a year they have this mullet tossing contest, and this thing is rad.
Well, you know where it started, actually. I asked, I'm like, how'd you guys even come up with this competition? And it actually started in Texas. There was a cow patty throwing contest. And they came back and said, man, there's got to be a better way of doing this. Like, we're doing this on the beach. That's where the mullet toss thing actually came from. But it's been going on, I think, for like 35 years now.
It's been going on. Listen, as long as I remember, I've been fishing for a living almost 30 years. I'm going on, just shy of 30. And people have always talked about it. Everywhere I travel in the world, they talk about the mullet toss contest.
It's a mess, though. It's funny. My favorite are the drunk girls that go throw it. They pick up their fish and come back with it, but they don't put the fish back in the cooler. They wander off with the fish. I'm like, where are you going with that?
Where are you going with the mullet?
And not to mention, they recycle it. So these things have been thrown, folded. I mean, they're just a mushy mess. So I don't know.
What I'd like to see is somebody actually wear it around their neck like a necklace. And this is the mullet I tossed. I get whatever. I'm not going to walk around with a mullet.
No, well, no, not at least not fish.
Yeah, well, what's the serious in the front, party in the back? If you're wearing the regular mullet for a haircut.
Well, and they all had wigs on too, which is weird for the beach too, because it's hot.
What?
Hot, and they all had these mullet wigs on, and so I can only imagine how bad some of these people stunk by the end of the day. I mean, they're drunk with a big wig on the beach covered in sand. I mean, some of these characters, man, it was something else. There was a guy who had a tube top on and this big old beer gut. He had a skirt, a fake mullet, a fanny pack, and across his stomach it said "Roll Tide."
Oh, you know what? You just opened up like 6 jokes. And, we talked about being inappropriate and non-PC, but I have to draw the line at that. I know there's 6 really good Roll Tide jokes that I'm not going to say, but I will. You bring that up, and growing up, I never spent much time in Alabama, and I didn't really even go up there till later on in my fishing career as I was promoting tournaments, and I never knew about Roll Tide and until I went to the national championship of Alabama and Notre Dame. Holy smokes, it's got to be 9 years ago. It was the year that Notre Dame went undefeated and Eddie Lacy was running for Alabama. Every time he got a first down, the entire stadium would yell, "Roll Tide." And I was like, this is amazing. This was completely amazing. I'm like, okay, I get it. So anytime I see somebody wearing an Alabama hat or a shirt, I just walk up, "Roll Tide." And it's like instant brotherhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's instant brotherhood. Now, are you Alabama fan being from Texas or?
Well, no, I originally grew up in Pennsylvania. So I moved down from Northeast Pennsylvania to Texas about 14 years ago. So I went to Penn State. So we just hope not to drop the soap in the shower, apparently, with old Jerry Sandusky. So I don't even know what our saying is. I'm pretty sure it's "we are," but it's at this point, who knows what it is?
My God, we are Penn State.
Yeah, that's what it used to be. Can you imagine though, when I was interviewing for jobs, right, was when that Sandusky thing was going down, and they'd look at your resume, and I had a solid resume, and they'd get to Penn State and they go, "And what about Jerry?" And what was going on in the news? I'm like, this totally derailed the fact that I went to like the School of Business, and I worked really hard academically. All of my interviews automatically went off to that nonsense. So.
It's funny you say that because I have this conversation with a lot of people, and you see it in a lot of and I'm not going to go down the political side, but you always hear the NFL talking about protect the shield. You see all these different listen, if you work for us, you're protecting the company. Be careful what you say. You're representing us. But it also goes back around where the company also has to represent its employees and the people that it stands for. Right. And so it is a two-way street. And something like that, which you had absolutely nothing to do with.
Dude, I had graduated before that, but it just comes out,
It totally comes out. And here is a Center for Higher Learning that there was a scandal, and now it doesn't take away from your degree, but it's definitely something that people talk about that has nothing to do with you or your degree.
Right. And I spent a half hour in a job interview. I got out of college. I graduated in 2008. And so it was all going on around that time, a little bit after, and you're young in your career, and you're all buttoned up in your suit, and you've been practicing all the questions and going through all the possible things in your resume. And first questions about Jerry Sandusky, when you sit down for a job interview, you're like, yeah.
Not a good topic.
Not a good topic. But speaking of that, let's just forget that.
Let's roll on to the next. Well, let's roll on to Roll Tide. Let's roll on to what we're really here to talk about is Hook and Barrel. Could you, first of all, let's start off with what Hook and Barrel is, and then tell everybody how you got started in it.
Well, Hook and Barrel is a lifestyle magazine for outdoorsmen. It's all celebrity based. When I first founded the magazine 4 years ago, I got tired of all of the political nonsense that were in your typical general interest, human interest reads like GQ, Max, and Men's Health, and whatever kind of magazine in that sphere. And then the endemic magazines, your Field and Streams, and your, even more niche-y ones that got into deer hunting or fishing, like Coastal Angler. All of those are great, but they didn't have any of that human interest side. And I just literally sat there and said, is there a redneck GQ? Like, what does that look like? And I went to Barnes and Nobles, went through all the magazine racks, couldn't find anything like it. And then just that entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and I started laying out the business plan. And, one whiskey drink led to another, with sketching out the logo on a bar napkin, and kind of came up with it. And next thing you knew, we kind of grew this brand. And since then, it's kind of been dubbed America's fastest growing lifestyle magazine for outdoorsmen. And today we launched a big giveaway with 511 Tactical. I mean, it's just grown where these big companies have latched on, and the celebrities have come around, and the advertising is going great. And it's been a blessing, man. It's just kind of because no one was in that niche. So
in today's world where print media, and I got corrected a couple of times, it's traditional media when it's print, where so many people and so many companies are struggling. What made you decide to go ahead and launch in this, I guess, hostile environment? I don't know if it's hostile. It's not that people are poo-pooing magazines. It's just people are looking at different ways to read what they want. So what made you decide to do it at this time? But how did you put together this business plan where you've become successful at it?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't come from a publishing background. I came from a marketing and PR background. And I think the key to our success in the beginning truly was ignorance of the industry. I didn't know. I didn't come in jaded at all. Like, I just looked at this and said, okay, this is how I want to do it. And so I think it's a good point that you said about traditional media. There's nothing traditional outside of the fact that we're in paper for what we do. There always are, as I talk to other editors or other writers, there sets protocol and things that they need to do. And it needs to be done this way. And the editor in chief doesn't take photographs, or the editor in chief doesn't write stories, or the editor in chief does this. Those are all things that I think maybe fall underneath the traditional category. And maybe that's why traditional media is not doing well. I looked at it and said, why are we doing it this way? Like, what is all this nonsense? Let's cut out all the fat. Let's just, let's do things a little bit differently. Let's not worry about all of these things that people assume need to be done in this particular manner or in this order for a magazine. We're always an unbiased magazine, but traditionally speaking, advertising and editorial are supposed to be church and state. Well, in the business world, things are a two-way street. So for those that help us, obviously we're going to say, hey, how can we benefit you? We're not going to skew stories, but if there's a great opportunity that, say Penn is presenting, if they're already a partner, why not help out? And so those are kind of things I looked at differently and said, let's benefit those that are there supporting us. And so that was one of the ways that we did it. And just, we have a great relationship with Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. In 4 states, you're able to pick up our magazine at the moment, no cost to the customer as they walk out. And so obviously we looked for great things. We started working with Bass Pro Shops sponsored athletes. Our first cover was Martin Truex Jr., who was driving the Bass Pro Shops car and had won the Monster Cup in, I think, 2017. We launched right in 2018. It's just sensible business practices. Things are done a little bit differently. And, a lot of these companies too have all this fat. They can't turn on a dime. At the end of the day, the buck stops with my wife and I. And so we're able to move very nimbly. And we don't take on too much where we don't become bogged down, but we also don't grow so big in bureaucracy that we can't just go, you know what, story's changing. We're heading to Orange Beach out of this unexpected thing. Now that was planned, but I was just saying that as an example.
No. And actually you make a pretty solid point. I know I've had a couple conversations with people over the years where I've seen some pretty big magazine companies that as things are changing, it's almost like trying to change course on an aircraft carrier or a tanker. Yeah. You can't. It's so big. And in today's world of social media, literally something's happening, about it within minutes.
And you've got to react, and you've got to be fast about it.
You have to be very, very fast because number one, we have a very short attention span nowadays.
Yep.
And we want, and I say we as a whole, we want our information like yesterday.
Yep.
We want instant gratification. It's like by the time a lot of this stuff comes to print, we've already seen it. We know about it. I have no problem reading about something to get more details, but breaking news coming in via magazine or print is hard.
Absolutely. But on the other side of things is with, the appropriate planning, you get a lot of things done. For example, we have a great relationship with the Discovery Channel. We've covered a lot of their stuff, a lot of their shows, a lot of their personalities. So if I could plan that out ahead, again, I guess maybe that's a traditional business practice, but being able to either snap and move very quickly or having, the foresight to get something done in advance, that also allows you the leeway to make those snap decisions when you need to, I think is important as well from a content standpoint.
So I have Cindy Moreland from Kentucky asking a question about women in the world of sport fishing. So my question to you would be, have you highlighted any famous women in the fishing or hunting realm?
We have. So one of our covers was Danica Patrick, our first female on our cover. Now she's in the racing world, but definitely touches our demographic. We just came off of the Dale Earnhardt Jr. cover. Man, we're talking a lot of NASCAR guys and girls. But within that issue was Laura Zara from the hit show Naked and Afraid, and we talked all about her. And then in the back side of the book, we have a social media influencer section that at face value we catch a lot of flack for because it's called the trophy room. It's usually some hot girl from Instagram. But what I do is I follow these women very, very closely and make sure we know which ones are the fakes and which ones aren't. We all know there's a ton of girls in cute bikinis, with fish, but I follow them very closely and actually then take that personality from social media, assign it to a female writer who then does a Q&A that takes that pretty face of the fish and actually breaks down and goes, listen, guys, I know a lot of you are probably men liking her photos because she's in a thong with a fish, but here's a whole Q&A. Here's who she is. She's a business person. She grew up this way. This is what she does. These are her accomplishments, and actually puts some detail to who that woman is, just that most guys are probably just perving out online, and so we do a lot there as well. So but for us, the celebrity factor of the magazine is definitely key. So most of the people that we cover have to be very instantaneously recognized or have large enough following. So I'm always open to suggestions, always looking for great females in the space.
There you go, guys. If you have any suggestions, go ahead and put it in the comment section. And I'll get it over to John. So somebody did make a mention, so I gotta point it out. And for those people that are listening in audio version only, you are in your trophy room, and right behind you there's a bobcat. Somebody asked, or somebody said that's a pretty cool looking bobcat. So I'm gonna ask, tell us the story about the bobcat.
Oh, the bobcat. That was a funny story, actually. I was deer hunting in Oklahoma. Or no, I was in Texas, right there on the Oklahoma border. And I came up empty for 3 days on my buddy's ranch. And the night before, we had been out predator hunting, and we didn't see anything. And literally, I was driving the UTV back, and that bobcat jumped out, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 yards away, and just was sprinting across the field. And I saw it, and you can't make this stuff up, even though it seems impossible. I saw him running, and I'm like, holy crap, there's a bobcat. Put on my optic and swung through like I was shooting a duck or a dove, and swung that round through. And I thought I hit it, but I didn't know. And it went rolling into a thicket. And so I went up there and I saw blood. I'm like, I cannot believe I hit that thing. The chances of me hitting that thing were so low at the speed it was running, at the distance it was running, and with the rifle. And sure enough, I found it there, and I came back, and my buddy's like, dude, I heard a gunshot. You get a deer? I'm like, no, I got that bobcat we couldn't get last night. He goes, no shit. I said, I can't believe it, Chad. It came out of nowhere, and I shot it. And I thought I hit the ground below because I hit it low because I actually aimed low on it because I knew I was using a hunting rifle, and I knew obviously a round for a deer would probably do a lot of detriment to the mount on a bobcat, but it actually worked out pretty well. And so, yeah, that's the story of the bobcat.
No, that's pretty cool. There was one time I was hunting in Texas, and at that point I had never hunted in Texas before. So there's no trees to climb up in. You're putting down ground blinds, and so I'm in a ground blind, and there's a mole. A mole that would come up out of the ground and eat a piece of corn, go back down, pop up another hole, eat another piece of corn. So I'm just sitting in my chair on the ground blind watching this mole eat corn. About the third time he popped up, where this bobcat came from, I don't know, but it was mid-air when I saw him.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh dear God, what is that? And next thing you know, it landed perfectly on the mole and had it right by his back and carried him off before I could even blink or grab my bow. Anything. He was gone. It was the most amazing thing. I'm like, that was a flying cat. That was a flying cat. This cat flew in from out of nowhere, landed perfectly on the mole. And yeah, I was like, I'm never going to forget that.
Yeah.
And to this day, I haven't forgotten it. It was pretty neat how he even saw that mole. I have no clue, but he knew he was there and he landed on him.
Probably the squeaking. Their ears are incredible. I mean, it's amazing. We have a cat, and so I watch how our domestic cat operates, and I can only imagine, like, she's kind of like older and lazy and is used to being around the house, but still little things make them tick. I can only imagine something that has had no generations of instinct bred out of them. I mean, just the way that I've seen bobcats several times in the wild, and they're incredibly fast. They're incredibly stealthy. And like I said, how I saw that one and shot it on the move, I don't know. And that's why normally you call them in and you shoot them that way. That one, I mean, even Chad still probably doesn't believe the story, but how quickly that thing happened. And it was after day 3 of not shooting a deer. So
you wanted to shoot something.
I just was like, dear God. And we were up out all night trying to get bobcats. I'm like, what are the chances I don't get a deer during the day? But mid morning, I have a bobcat running across. So,
it's funny. I think I'm 10 days away. I'm flying up to Wisconsin to go turkey hunting, and I'm going up with a bunch of buddies, and they're like, hey, have you been turkey hunting? I said, well, yeah, I've been plenty of times, but I've never shot a turkey with a gun. They're like, what? I go, I've only turkey hunted with my bow and arrow. And so this is a new experience for me using a shotgun. First of all, it's a lot easier than trying to draw a bow back and trying to get a turkey. But mainly I'm going to hang out with my buddies. I mean, that's my biggest thing. We had it's not, I don't want to say I'm not looking forward to it. I'm way looking forward to it. And I love turkey hunting, but a lot of times I'm just busy. And we had done a bison hunt in January, and then I took them on a fishing trip down to Guatemala in February. So they sent me a text message, hey, we're going turkey hunting. You want to go? Yeah, count me in. I'll go. So we're going up there. So I'm looking forward to that, and try to get the last bit of some cold weather before summertime comes in.
I know. I'm trying to get out this weekend, and the rain's not participating. Our deer lease has a lot of river crossings to get into. But then I looked, next week it's starting to get about 85 degrees in Oklahoma, where our deer lease is. And that's not exactly turkey hunting weather.
Yeah. That means spring is coming to an end.
Yeah.
I'm really not looking forward to 90-degree temperatures yet. But hey, listen, it's what we got to do. And you're from Texas, I'm from Florida, so you totally understand what dealing with heat is all about.
Well, I mean, your heat kind of is a little bit more too with that humidity. We don't have quite as much humidity here, but because I love it hot, but the humidity thing in Florida, or Houston for that matters,
Yeah, anywhere on the coast in Texas is pretty humid. You come August, you open up the door, and before you can walk to the car, you kind of got to cut through the humidity.
Yep.
It just, and it's horrible for my hair. Sorry, I had to play on that one.
Yeah.
So, John, what got you into fishing and hunting? When did it start for you?
Fishing started out early. I was always kind of into fishing. I liked that a lot. But my uncle Rick really got me into real fishing growing up. He would get me out. Growing up, fishing was always like little ponds, that kind of stuff. Then Uncle Rick started getting me up to Maine, fishing for landlocked salmon and brown trout and brook trout, that kind of stuff. Growing up in Pennsylvania, it was easy to just drive I think about 10 hours north. So I really got into the outdoors there. And then in the shooting space, my cousins got me into shotgunning. And so I really got into trap and skeet and all of that. And I shot that all through college and part of high school. And then the hunting thing really didn't start until I moved down to Texas. I had a buddy who had a ranch out in West Texas. I was helping them out there doing some work around there. And it kind of went from shooting skeet to, hey, it's dove season. Let's go shoot dove. So we got, and that's a national holiday here in Texas. And so we got into shooting dove, and I quickly found out I loved doing that because it was an erratic target and you didn't know when they were coming. And so that made me really excited. And then, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Listen, it happens all the time here. So
yeah. And so, jump back in here. Sorry about that. And so I started shooting there, but naturally it was like $68 for the everything hunting license here in Texas. So I needed to buy that. It was the super combo. So that got all my fishing, my saltwater fishing. It got, dove. And then I also got deer tags with it. So when deer season rolled around, I had already been doing a ton of shooting and got into rifle shooting and all that, a lot of target stuff. And I thought to myself, well, deer hunting would be a lot of fun because it's kind of like an unexpected target like dove. So let's go out. Well, that was about, I think 13 years ago. And I went out that morning and I took a 308. It was actually a suppressed weapon that we were using for pig hunting. And I saw a deer at about 300 yards down the fence line as I was walking around, and clearly not knowing a whole lot about deer hunting. I was walking around first off, but I knew I always saw them near the fence lines. I knew I had long shots. So I sighted it in and I thought to myself, well, I don't really know much about deer. Guess I'm going to shoot towards its head. Like, it's either going to be a clean miss or a clean kill. Like, I don't know. And so, because my dad passed when I was 7, so I didn't grow up with a mentor in the outdoor space. And so I sent the round and hit the deer hooves up, and I walked up to him and went, okay, now what? So I pulled out my old cell phone and YouTubed cleaning a deer, and about an hour later, it's covered in blood and guts. I went back to the house and got my buddy and said, hey man, I shot a deer. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's a total mess. And so can you come out? And so I think at that time, in anybody's outdoor career, you get to this Y on the road. Are you going to love it or are you going to hate it? Because most people would say, look, I didn't know what I was doing. It was a mess. It was disgusting by the time I got done. I'm done. But it just kind of made me even more determined because it released something primal in my body as an outdoorsman. And those have never hunted or fished, when you finally convert on that species you're chasing, like there's something in your body, at least in mine, that clicked, that went, this feels very right. It released this little primal part. Now I've provided food for my family. I've hunted. I don't know, that inner caveman came out. And so I just got more and more obsessed with it. And it just kind of became kind of an obsession for a while. I learned a ton about it, continued to work in the field, in the marketing and PR field that I was working in. And then, every time something that would even remotely come near hunting and fishing in the PR world at my firm, it was put onto me. And so I became really excited about working with those clients. Then I eventually left the firm I was at to start my own. I took on a lot of hunting and fishing clients because I built a reputation in that space. And before you know it, it just kind of grew into Hook and Barrel magazine. And so since then, it's really kind of become an obsession, clearly. But now I have a whole lot less time to actually do what I love to do because all I'm doing is talking about it. So,
well, you know what, though? I mean, I do the same thing in the fishing world. I used to work on boats full time, and fishing 200 days a year. And then now it's gotten to the point where since I've created this company, I spend, when I'm not fishing, I spend the time talking about it. And I can't complain about that, because the idea of when you're not fishing, you're talking about it. And when you're not talking about it, you're doing it. So, and then you constantly meet new people and you get to introduce them to a new world or something they've never seen, or be introduced to a new world. Check out something that's really new and exciting. And I have to definitely touch on the point of what you said about harvesting your own food and providing. There's something to be said of a fish or an animal that you were able to capture or you were able to harvest, and then now you're bringing it to the dinner table. It just, I don't know, for me, it just tastes a little bit better.
Well, it tastes better, and it's because it's all the things that all the antis want. It is non-GMO, it is free range, it is organic, and whatever their little terms are, that's what it is. And so, first off, it's going to taste better, but I don't know. There's just something as a man, like I have hunted, I've outsmarted, I have harvested, I have now fed my family. It completes the circle of life. I mean, I always say God didn't give you these for no reason. We'd all have, like it's just something about it.
Exactly. And like you said, you've provided, and it gets kind of to our basic, not necessarily need, but our basic instinct of being able hunter gatherer.
Yeah.
And there is a satisfaction to it, where you, like you said, you went out, I hate to use the word tricked, but you snuck up on, and you were able to harvest an animal, and now you're feeding yourself, you're feeding your family, you're feeding your friends, and you have a story to go with it.
Absolutely. And another thing about me too is I, these big high fence ranches and stuff. Now I've hunted on them before, and that's kind of where I kind of got my start. Well, I guess the first deer I shot was on a low fence, but then I kind of got into it. But I quickly realized that wasn't for me. That wasn't hunting. That was more just killing, in my opinion. And so for me, my deer lease is now, it's just under 2,300 acres on a greater 68,000 down in southeastern Oklahoma in the Kiamichi Mountains. No fences, nothing. So this is all fair chase, free range. And that's the way I hunt. I mean, I was ignorant in the beginning about, just shooting things off ranches. But I learned very quickly. So even more so is, I've come up empty handed on deer for the last 2 years, but there's something so satisfying about tracking and going up in the spring and finding, where they're hanging out, how their weather affects things. There's a whole science to it. Just like fishing, the moon affects things, the tide affects things. In hunting, it's the moon, it's the weather, it's the barometric pressure, it's finding where they are during the spring versus where they are during the summer versus where they are during the fall, figuring all of that out. And when it all comes together and your deer cam, you're tracking, that deer's there every day, 5 o'clock. Now he's here at 6 o'clock. And at 6:30, he's going to walk into right where I have my sights. And you spend that much time putting all that together. I mean, it is almost like, I don't know. I'm getting chills thinking about it, putting it all together. And then it comes down to that 1 second for me. It's the competition too. Like I'm competing with that animal too, because I'm fighting the smell. I'm fighting its sight. I'm fighting, if the wind is wrong, if there's a snap, hell, if there's a squirrel that moves the wrong way, it's gone. And so for me, it all comes together at that one culmination moment. And then I take that deer and then I bring it home to my friends and family. Man, nothing's better than that in my opinion. So
no, listen, you hit the nail on the head when you described it. There's so many working things. People, they confuse killing with hunting. Just like people confuse catching with fishing. It's two different things. It's two totally different things. Absolutely. So there's a lot of techniques. There's a lot of thought process. And like you said, if you're looking for that one specific animal, and it's different than if you go by the it's brown, it's down theory. But if you're out there looking for a specific animal and you're waiting for that opportunity to see him and then take advantage of him making a mistake and you not making one,
Yeah.
I know I'm an archery hunter. I love archery hunting.
Yeah. So
And
you get it.
I no, I totally get it, because you're looking at the animal you want. But the problem for me a lot of times, and anybody that's archery hunted, it's not just the animal that you are trying to harvest, but as you're pulling back your bow, there's 3 does looking at you and you forget to look at them.
Yeah.
So you literally have to watch all the animals and then take your opportunity to draw back, because it's not just one set of eyes, it's all of them.
And with a bow, I mean, you can't even nick a branch. Sometimes the rifle, you can
Oh,
get away with it, but you got everything in place and you're drawing back and you release and you're worried about the doe and you frick, the wind blows and that branch moves just a hair and you hit it. Your hunt
you're
could be over.
done.
That deer doesn't come back for weeks.
Yeah, you're done. Weeks, maybe it could be next season.
Well, I've got one, man. He's one of these days he'll be on my wall. It's been 2 years, but I've named him the Joker. He's this huge, tall 9-point, and I call him the Joker because if I'm at my one blind, he's at the other. When I go to the other, he's there, and I gotta be joking, man. And since then, he's been called the Joker.
That's awesome.
So Joker will be mine, hopefully. Fingers crossed, one of these seasons.
I listen, I hope you get him. I hope you get him this season coming up.
Yeah.
Now, are you still walking along the fence line looking for deer, or have you changed your techniques?
Yeah, no, the techniques have drastically changed from the first time I ever shot a deer.
I had to ask, man. I had to ask. It's one of those things. I think even me in my fishing career, I think about growing up and some of the things that I did. I'm like, how did I ever catch anything?
Yeah, no, that whole hunt was a disaster, but hey, it got me into the sport, and that's all that matters. Yeah, now we have no fences. It's completely free range, and that's how I like it. Not to mention that, but our cabin that we've built, our cabin, aka the tool shed, is off grid too. So we're literally in the middle of nowhere. So I mean, you are truly in their territory. So
I love it. I love it. Now, where you're hunting and in Texas there on your lease, is that more of open prairie, or is there woods involved? Are you setting up tree stands, or are you like ground blinding it?
No, so I'm actually, our lease is in southeastern Oklahoma.
Okay.
So it's about 3.5 hours northeast of me in the Kiamichi Mountains. So base camp is at 600 feet above sea level, and my hunting spot is about 1,900 feet, but it's about 3/4 of a mile as the crow flies. So I mean, the elevation shift is crazy, and we've got a ton of pine trees. I mean, it literally, if you close your eyes and you open them and forgot that you were in Oklahoma, you would think you were probably in New Mexico, maybe Northern California, somewhere in Colorado. I mean, it is mountainous, it is rugged. So yeah, no, it's all, there are a few ground blinds I'll hunt that I've kind of found little patches in the woods where I've put some food plots. But outside of that, no, it's mostly climbers and tree stands. Everything's a bow shot for the most part. And what makes it even more complicated is people don't realize there's 5 counties in Oklahoma that have black bear. So to make your deer hunting even harder, you've got black bear that roll in and decide they're going to if you have a feeder, it's gone. If you have a ground blind, it's shredded. Hell, they bite the cameras. And so now I'm actually competing against something that's making things even more difficult. Not to mention deer hate bear. So you got to do all you can to keep the bear away from your deer hunting spots.
Listen, here in people don't realize how many black bear are in South Florida. We have a pretty healthy black bear population in South Florida. And yeah, they had a black bear hunting season a couple years ago because people were calling into the state saying, "Hey, listen, we're having these bear problems." So they gave the state a quota, and I don't even quote me on the numbers. I want to say they gave it a 4-week period to kill 400 bears.
Wow.
They killed the quota within a day and a half. That's how many bears were out there. They were able to fill the quota in a day. The rest of the 4 weeks were done. That's how many bears were killed because there's that many of them. And
quota. They got rid of the quota where I hunt. So that's
did they? So you just have an open season?
We do. It's 3 weeks, and a lot of times they're migratory too. So you get your first 2 weeks and your last your last week of it where muzzleloader comes in, they're kind of gone. But yeah, well, and you know what's even crazier about my lease is all of a sudden about 2-3 years ago, I started having black bears come on with tags in their ears. And I thought, okay. So I called up there and up to the game warden and said, well, you know, what does this mean? Are they part of a government study? Like, I know you're not supposed to shoot collared things. Like, what about the tags in their ears? And they said, oh, no. Those are the nuisance bears we pick up in the cities and the neighborhoods. We're actually been dumping them up near your land. I'm like, oh, great.
Oh, great.
We've got felons up here now. No wonder breaking into shit. Like now we got.
Not only are they bears, they already know how to break into shit.
They do, man.
That is awesome. Now where I go giant tuna fishing in Canada, the way the fishing quota is set up, we're allowed to catch 3 every day. And the afternoons I go bear hunting. And again, for me, it's archery. And I think the other day when we were talking about it, I was telling you I have a couple of pictures of me in a ground blind with a deer like 4 yards away. And all my buddies are like, are you crazy? That thing's like 12 feet away. I'm like, man, that thing's just eating. He doesn't care about me. Now it does become a problem when there's 2 or more bears and they're fighting for the food. That's the times that I get nervous. Not necessarily that they want to attack me, but I don't want to be in the middle of 2 or 3 bears trying to fight for food, and here's a short hairy Cuban right in the middle. I look like a bear without a shirt on, but I'm not a bear. I'm not that strong.
Funny. That's funny.
So we have a good time up there, and again, like you said, there's a difference between hunting and killing. Most of the time I'm just out there watching the bears. We see some really nice ones on camera that come in the dark. I don't see the nice ones during the day. But one day it'll make the mistake and I'll get the opportunity. But until then, I just sit there with my buddy and we take tons of videos and tons of film. And
how eerie is that walking to your blind? Because we walk in, say like 5 a.m. to get there before sunrise. And you're like, I know that big one's out here somewhere and it's dark. That is always the eeriest feeling for me walking in, you know, and you know, obviously they don't like you carrying a gun during bow season because, you know, bear is all archery up in Oklahoma. So there I am with like my bow in the dark. This could get ugly really fast.
And you're trying to be quiet so you don't scare the deer away, but you don't want to be too quiet where you spook a bear.
Yeah, exactly.
In Canada, it's not a problem for me because of the fact that I don't hunt in the mornings. I'm fishing in the mornings. So I always go in the afternoons. I've had that problem in Florida, but here's another problem I've had in Florida. And now I don't have that lease anymore. But most of Florida, what people don't understand, Florida's a swamp. Mm-hmm. So our hunting lease and our deer here in South Florida, they rut in July and August.
Oh man,
it's brutal. And here's the thing that's even worse. All of this area that we're hunting, that's our rainy season, so it's underwater. So try to track a deer in water. Yeah. Now you can hear them coming from a mile away, but trying to track them. But what I have gotten on my trail cams is the hogs that are eating the corn. The alligators will swim in and eat the hogs. So now you don't even have to worry about bears. You got to worry about gators. You got to worry about moccasins. You got to worry about all this other crap.
Yeah, no, I think I'll stick to Miami Beach for South Florida.
Man, that's even more dangerous, man.
Yeah,
that's even more dangerous. What are you kidding me? Listen, at least I know an animal is just trying to protect themselves. A teenager on South Beach during spring break is dangerous. You don't even know what they want.
I was there in November, man. It was crazy. Because I think the tourism has shifted too. I mean, there's a lot more younger people, and it was great. Like all of a sudden, rooms that are normally $500 a night are now like $100.
No. First of all, let's get something straight. They're not getting younger. The age has stayed the same. You're just getting older.
I just want a good bottle of wine.
Because I remember when I was that age doing that. And now it's like, what the hell's happening? No. We're just getting older. So And now also, I go to bed at 9. So whatever happens after 9 o'clock, whatever, I just wake up and read it in the news. I just read it in the news.
Better to do it that way.
But here's another thing. Because of Florida being open, we've been open for so long. Everybody's been coming down here to enjoy spring break or just get away. So if you've been stuck in college or in dorm rooms and suddenly you go out to the beach, it's party time. And I understand both sides of it. I totally do. I understand where they're trying to control the crowds, but at the same time, listen, if I was 20 years old and I've been locked up somewhere where I can't go outside and I can't go to a bar, and now I get to go to the beach and talk to girls or girls talking to guys or whatever, and I want to have a good time, and I totally understand it. I 100% understand both sides of it. So
I knew I was old. I left the hotel. My wife was getting dressed for dinner. I went out to go get a bottle of wine. The liquor store is across the street from me. Getting into the liquor store, I had to push my way through a twerking contest. I'm like, listen, ladies, y'all are hot, but get out of the way. Like I don't even know why you're doing this right here. Go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else.
I get my bottle of wine. I'm coming back across the road. And next thing you know, a huge convoy of quads come flying down the road doing wheelies. And I nearly get hit by them. I'm like, what in the hell is going on in this town? All I wanted was a drink. And before you know it, I'm like fighting through the twerking contest, getting run over by the quads. I'm like, I'm 36, but I feel like I'm 80. Like I'm just.
It happens fast.
Yeah.
It happens fast. I was told this, I think 2 years ago. I'm going to pass this information on to you, being that I'm a couple years older than you. I'm all about passing on information. I'm a firm believer in helping the next generation come up. Life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it turns.
Shit. No pun intended.
Listen, you went right to it. What the hell was that? We're just talking about the toilet paper. You didn't have to go what we use it for, man.
Oh man.
But it's so true. How does it go? It seems like just yesterday I was 23 years old and living in Venezuela chasing blue marlins, and now I'm almost 50. So, but I wouldn't change anything. I'm enjoying life more now, and I know so many more people now, and I get to go traveling and see all kinds of great fishing and hunting all over the place and share that information. And I love it. For me, I love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about you. I'm sure maybe your viewers definitely know, but the inner journey to me. One, tell me the story of the fish behind you, and two, how'd you get into the fishing scene, especially built a voice in it like you have?
So the fish behind me, there's nothing special about that fish.
Do you steal it from the restaurant?
Well, close. So at the time, and nobody's asked me the question about this particular fish, so I'll tell you the story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I was early 30s. When I say early 30s, I mean I was either 30 or 31. I can't remember how old I was. Me and my girlfriend were living together, and we broke up. And just like a normal 30-year-old, I was heartbroken, and I didn't want to go too far off the rails. So what I decided I was going to do is I was going to remodel my house. So I wanted to make it a little bit more aquatic. And so I called up my taxidermy guy, and I said, hey, I want a blue marlin for my wall. I'm looking for something, I don't know, 87 to 92 inches. And he's like, I got a great one at 96 inches. Does it matter if he goes to the left or to the right? I'm like, I don't care. The only thing I care about is I want to be there when they paint it. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. So he calls me up, whatever it was, 4 weeks later. He goes, hey man, because what people may or may not know, nowadays, you don't have to kill your fish to get a mount. They've got the mounts, and it's a fiberglass replica, so we can catch and release safely. And so he called me up, and literally it was just a fiberglass colored marlin, and went in there and we painted. And at that time they had just introduced a new paint color, and it was pearl. And pearl is a clear iridescent paint that as you shine light on it, it'll hue like a wet fish. So I'm like, oh, add more pearl. Add more. The more he sprayed it, the more I wanted it because it kind of glistened with the light. You walk to the left, you walk to the right, and I'm like, oh, it still looks like it's alive. So that's the story about the fish.
Okay.
Now, as far as me, I've been fishing for a living since I was 19 years old. I got when I was in high school, I was working for a guy. His father was a boat captain. And when I got to college, I was working at the local performing arts theater. Summertime's coming along. And for the summers, I would just work, save my money, and it would pay for school for the year. And then I'd continue working, you know, for expenses. And anyway, so my buddy's dad, who was a boat captain, he asked me, what are you doing this summer? And he's like, I said, I'm just working and fishing. And back then, and I'll date myself to everybody that's listening, minimum wage was $4 or 4.25. So I was making $4 an hour. And he says, I'll pay you $100 a day to come fishing with me in Mexico. And I'm like, listen, I'd love to do it, but I'm going to be honest. I have this thing. I'm brutally honest with people sometimes, and sometimes it's to my benefit. Sometimes it's not. But this time it was to my benefit. And I said, listen, I'll go. And you know, I love to fish, but I don't know anything about working on big boats. And he's like, no worries. I'll teach you about working on a big boat, and I'll teach you about fishing on a big boat. I just need somebody that speaks 2 languages. I want somebody to speak Spanish. I'm going to Mexico. And so I went to Mexico, and it was awesome catching blue marlins, catching sailfish, catching white marlins. I never knew that there was such a thing that you can make a living off of it. And anyway, long story short, people really quickly realized I spoke 2 languages, and I helped, a couple years later, or actually it was later on, maybe a year or 2 later, I got a phone call. Somebody was going through the Panama Canal and they needed a deckhand. So I went through the Panama Canal in the mid 90s. And again, wait a second, you speak both languages? And it was kind of like the common denominator when I ended up moving to Venezuela through the late 90s and fishing. And I learned a lot of my basic stuff in fishing while I lived in Venezuela. I didn't learn all of it, but there was some basic stuff that I really needed to know. And Venezuela was good for it because you get so many bites. It was nothing to get 100 bites a day. Wow. So yeah, in the fall, there was more than one time we would hook a grand slam up and have them fighting at the same time. And for people that don't know what a grand slam is, it's 3 different billfish species. So we'd have a blue, a white, and a sail jumping all behind the boat. And it's like National Geographic. It was really, really cool. And then where I really made the jump in my career, there was a gentleman building an 80-foot sport fish. At the time, it was a $5.5 million boat. That same boat nowadays is probably about 15 million. And he was looking for a deckhand, but he was looking for a bilingual deckhand, and everybody was mentioning my name. And I got an email, and I said, listen, I'd already given my boss notice that I was leaving November 1st. This was, I don't know, May. I said, if he waits, I'll talk to him. Anyway, long story short, I left Venezuela, came back home, took the job with him. And little did I know, and I knew of him, and I knew his captain, I knew of the operation. I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to go that route. But little did I know was this gentleman ended up becoming not only my mentor, but he became a father figure to me. And everything that when I showed up working for him, I had a pickup truck and a duffel bag. And because of him, at one point I had 6 apartment buildings. I was owning apartments. I was renting them out while I was fishing. I'm a 20-something-year-old kid doing this stuff because he taught me there's nothing in this world you can't do. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. Yeah. And I've already done that in the fishing world, because when I first started fishing, I was told I could never do it. And I'm like, really? Watch this.
Yeah.
And I put my head to it, and I did the same thing with him. And he was also one of these very charismatic guys. Everybody loved him. Everybody knew him. And our team, he treated it like the New York Yankees. There was no expense spared. And we were in magazines. We were all over the place, which really helps. It's helped me because back then there was no social media. So because we're in all these magazines, before that, back in 1999, I started a fishing magazine with some friends. We started inthebite.com, and we then turned it to a published magazine. And people realized I knew how to write. They probably thought I was illiterate before then, but I was writing. Well, this is all again before Google searches and all that. Well, my name ended up being printed so often that once SEO started jumping in, my name showed up everywhere. And later I got my own column in Marlin Magazine. Move forward 8 years, he passes away. He battled lung cancer and he passed away. And it was a hard time for me. It took me about 5 years to get over it. Because he was like, and I still don't want to say I got over it, but it took me 5 years to grieve, and I was able to fish with his family, fish with his son, and help and teach his grandson how to blue marlin fish. Then I got an offer to run a boat out in Hawaii, and I went out to Hawaii, and I ran this boat for 2 years for a gentleman out of Texas. Then he sold the boat, and I came back home. And at the time, I was 40, and I'm like, okay, you're not 20 years old anymore. You're 40. Do you want to get another job on a boat where you can work for somebody for 15 years or 10 or 2, and they can say, I'm going to sell my boat and I got to look for another job? Or do I want to do something else? And I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, listen, I have no kids. I'm not married. I have very low overhead. I'm just going to freelance and figure out what I want to do. And so I started freelancing. Well, as I started freelancing, I would post my adventures on social media. And before you know it, I had marketed myself to the point where I was fishing 200, 250 days a year, and I could not do anything else. And the money was great, but you talk about having an entrepreneurial spirit. The first thing I thought of is, how do I quantify this? So the first thing I started doing is I created my first tournament. I woke up on I can't remember what birthday it was. It was one of my birthdays. I woke up and I said, I'm going to put on a tournament. And I incorporated it and I started marketing it on social media. And then I started, like any other fisherman, you realize this lure works good. Well, let's create more of these lures and put them out there. So I started creating how-to videos. I wanted to teach people how to fish. I got a degree to be a teacher. I never used it. Traditionally. So in turn, I figured I'm going to use social media to teach people how to fish. So I started creating all these how-to videos. I've got about 1,300 of them floating around the internet. And I keep them cataloged on my YouTube, but I don't try to monetize on them. I give them away. I give them away to everybody. I'm not trying to monetize them on them. What I'm trying to do is teach people how to fish, teach people how to, like you said, once you know how to hunt, it becomes more fun. Well, once you know how to fish, it becomes more fun. So I want people to learn so they're not always afraid to try something. And little by little, people started calling me up. Hey, can you help us with our social media? And at first it was, okay, it's a business model. I'll do it. The problem that I ran into was, if I sign a contract with this glasses company and I go on somebody else's boat and I have another pair of glasses or fishing rod, the company's going to say, well, why are you using somebody else's fishing rods?
Right.
Well, listen, they're paying me to teach them how to fish. So I learned really quickly that I did not want to work for companies. I'd rather work with destinations and boards of tourism. So me creating events were the best way to create more content for myself. So I can only be on one boat at a time, but I can get 50 boats creating content for me. So all of my tournaments are based on creating content, not creating money, not creating revenue. Revenue, it flows. But the goal is to create as much content as possible. And then I go to whatever board of tourism and I say, here's a Dropbox, and here's all the pictures of this marina in your country. Enjoy. And before you know it, I end up making these great relationships with boards of tourism all over the world. And that's what helped lead me to putting on the first ever international tournament in Saudi Arabia. We were working on uh, the second annual tournament, along with building the first ever fishing academy in Saudi Arabia before COVID hit. I was flying around the world recruiting fishermen to fish my tournament over there. And I've been invited to speak at the University of China on how I use social media to promote fishing and tourism. And when I spoke in China, I had been fishing on the Great Barrier Reef. So I flew from Australia straight to, I had to fly to Hong Kong first to get clothes because I didn't have any clothes to speak. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be wearing board shorts. And so I went to Hong Kong, got some clothes. I flew to Hainan Island where this tourism festival was going on. They had dignitaries from all these different countries. They had different content creators. And when I say content creators, we're talking about, like, the guy that spoke behind me was from Discovery Channel. The guy that spoke before me had a company that he can geolocate people or locations by your Instagram post. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be speaking amongst all these guys. And I'm just a dumbass fisherman. And I was given 30 minutes to speak. I put together 29 minutes and 30 seconds of content, raw content. I grabbed my videos from giant tuna fishing, my videos from the Great Barrier Reef, my videos from DR, Costa Rica, and I put together a 29-minute, 30-second video of me fishing all over the world. And I spoke. And as I'm speaking, it's being translated to everybody's little headphones to whatever 5 or 6 different languages. And after the whole meeting, and I'm like, well, if people make fun of me, who cares? I got a chance to come to China. I had all these governors, lieutenant governors, ambassadors. Can I take a selfie with you? And I was like, why don't you talk to the guy from Discovery Channel? His video is better. He's like, yeah, but he wasn't in the video. You're the guy that's actually fishing. You're the guy that's doing it. They're just putting it all together. And I'm like, okay. So I realized that not only am I putting all this stuff on, I'm also the guy that's done it. So that's where I get a chance to speak on it. And that's what's led me. Now, COVID really shut my business down. And for anybody that's listening, I don't normally talk about finances or whatever. It was the first time in 5 years that I was going to make a profit. I was pretty excited. 2020, I was going into the year. I'm like, I'm finally going to make a profit for my company. And then COVID hit. And I went from going to make a profit to, oh my God, I don't even know if I can pay my bills. And I had to cancel 3 events. And 2021 started with us canceling 3 events within the first month. But here's what did happen during 2020. I got forced to sit behind my computer. And all these people that I've traveled all over the world with, they were locked behind their computer as well. And we all had to think about, what are we going to do with our businesses? So we kept coming up with new ideas. And how we got introduced, one of those people that I got introduced to was Suzanne, which helped me put together my first ever publication. I've never wrote a book before. So that was an idea.
When I landed last night, I paged through it this morning. It looks excellent. Great work.
Thank you so much. I never thought I'd ever write a book. It was never one of my goals in life. And I had a friend of mine that would always yell at me, man, a book is like your new business card. You have to have it if you want to be taken seriously. And I'm like, listen, if you don't take me seriously because I don't have a book, then I don't want to do business with you. You take me serious because of who I am, not what not what things I've printed or whatever. Look at my accomplishments. Anyway, long story short, we've done that. In the long run, we've ended up spinning up 5 new companies.
Wow. Good for
Just
you.
sitting back here, and everything is premised around the outdoors. In my world. Now, mind you, some of the companies, and I'm not going to go into detail online. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it afterwards. Some of these companies can and will blend into other companies that have nothing to do with the outdoor space. But I've taken what I've learned on connecting people in the outdoor space, and it's a template. It's just like my fishing tournaments. It's a template. So this works. Create that same thing, fill in the spots, and you can put it into hunting. You can put it into real estate sales. You can put it into whatever you want. I use the same technique in business that I used in fishing. This is what I'm going to do to start my morning. These are the things I'm going to do to adjust during the day. This is what I'm going to do to be prepared for the afternoon. This is what I'm going to do to finish out the afternoon day. And it's a step-by-step process. I was not in the military, but I do like the regiment of military. I always tell everybody, and you can agree or disagree, but I know with fishing and hunting, and anybody that's hunted for deer, they've heard of buck fever. And buck fever is when you get so excited when that buck comes in that you forget all your training and all the things that you've planned to do. And when I teach people how to fish, I don't throw so much on their plate where they can't remember it. I try to teach them 3 basic things. And when you do those 3 basic things, and I realize that you've got it down to muscle memory, then I'll teach you a 4th. When you get that, I'll teach you a 5th, because we all have a game plan until we get punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
And we're going to go Control Alt Delete, and we're going to default. So once we default, I want your muscle memory to take over. These are the things that I've taught you to do. Well, I do the same thing in business. These are the things that I do. And when I get punched in the mouth, i.e. COVID, I'm going to continue doing what I do. And there were certain things that I did. I'm going to jump on social media. I'm going to share my stories. I'm going to share my pictures. And I continue to do that, except I couldn't create those pictures anymore. But I still had, 5 terabytes of pictures and videos. But I was able to create this live podcast. This podcast was born, and anybody that's watching that's came from the beginning was born in my driveway, because after 10 days, everybody said, oh, 2 weeks, to flatten the curve. By 10 days, I knew I wasn't going nowhere.
Right.
And I needed to talk to my fishing buddies. So I went out in my front driveway and I started broadcasting, and I would answer questions, and I would pass on truthful. And I say that because I would call these people that I knew in different states and different counties and say, are the boat ramps open? No, they're not. Okay, then let me pass that on, because there was so much hearsay going on. Well, just like we talked about Florida and Texas, it's damn hot. So I moved from the driveway to inside, and then I built this studio, and it's a 10 by 10. It's a Florida room. And for people what don't know what a Florida room is, Florida room is like an old screened in porch that you actually built a wall and made it an extra air conditioned area. And I put myself in a little corner here, and I went from my laptop to screens, to a DSLR camera. Now I've got all the hardware, and I can boom people in on this podcast from Japan, from South America, from South Africa, from the Seychelles, from wherever I want to share the stories. And as a fisherman, it's like bad weather. You don't just stop fishing, or you can't just say, oh my God, we're bad weather, let's stop and go in. You got to deal with whatever you got. And that's what I'm doing. Yeah. So, and I'm constantly using my reach to meet new people, to teach new people, and to share other people's stories like yours. I love to do that. I have a very full Rolodex, but I've been doing this for 30 years. And I said it on my podcast the other day. It's something that I believe in every single day when I wake up. My job is to introduce fishing in the outdoors to at least one more person. And when I'm creating content for that person in Iowa that's never been on a boat or that's never fished before. Don't ask me why I picked Iowa. It's just the middle of the country, but that's what I think of. What does a guy in Iowa want to see? And that's how I create my content. And he may have seen a dolphin fish before. He may not. He may have seen a blue marlin. He may not, but I want to make sure he looks it in a light where I want to try that.
Exactly.
And after that point, then I make it easily accessible through my stuff for you to at least find it. Find the information that you're looking for. And then once you find it, it's your whole new world. It ain't mine. I'm just welcoming you to the fraternity. And that's the way I see it. I just want to welcome you to the fraternity. I'm the guy at the front door. I'm like the Walmart greeter. Hey, welcome to the crazy outdoors. This is what we do. I'm your spokesperson, Fly Navarro. And if you have any questions, just pull down one of the tabs and we'll help you any way we can. And I get those questions. Man, I want to go fishing here. I want to go hunting here. Who should I call? Hey, here are the people that I would use, or here's my contacts. Use them. And that's what I've done with this podcast is just open it up to everybody else so people can see that there's a cool new magazine out there to talk about fishing and hunting and outdoors that maybe somebody hasn't heard of because you're not a big conglomerate. But you know what? You fought, and I hate to call you a mom and pop operation because it kind of depicts people that are a little bit older, but you're a mom and pop operation. And that's what our country has been built on, is people like us, people like you and your wife that have an idea and want to fix a problem, want to help people. And that's all I want to do. And I'm not going to have a biological legacy. I'm not planning on having children. So my legacy to me is, what am I going to leave for my community? And this is my community, fishing and hunting and being outdoors and sharing the stories with people. And that's what I love to do. I mean, I wake up every morning and I jump out of bed because I know I'm going to go talk to people.
That's awesome, man. No, and it's so true. And there's so much in there that you just said to unpack. But I think my number one mission from my first editor's note that I ever wrote was, we conserve everything. We conserve ducks, we conserve fish, we conserve rhinos, we conserve everything. The one thing that I don't hear people talking a lot about is conserving the hunter. And what is that? How do you do that? How do you ensure that people either keep coming back, or we continue to grow the habitat in which that more could actually breed into the outdoor sports? And that's been my mission with Hook and Barrel. And just like you said, for me, there's two ways this could work. And actually this is our great new saltwater issue, just about hit stands.
Is that ZZ Top on the cover?
It is Billy Gibbons. And but the way that I designed the magazine is, you might like Billy Gibbons. You might have never fished. You might never have hunted before, but you might pick our magazine up because you love a sharp dressed man. You know what I mean? From ZZ Top, right?
Amen.
And you're going to read his article. Let's flip to his article. So you got this great article in here. Have Mercy with Billy Gibbons is actually about his love for fishing and cooking. But then the next one you're going to flip over to is something that's a little bit more fishy. Fishing with Captain Sig from the Northwestern on Deadliest Catch. Now we're getting a little bit closer. So then you're going to flip over somewhere in the book and you're going to get to surf fishing. So now you went from something that's attracted you in to, everyone talk fishing, and I've seen this on TV, to a very, very achievable thing. Get a rod and reel, go to the beach, try your luck. Here's some tips and tricks. And then it starts getting a little bit deeper. And you're right. I hook you with this, and then the next thing you flip over, and we kind of go the gamut. I mean, we do everything from fishing to turkey hunting. And so maybe the next issue you get after this would be a firearms issue in July, August. But as you kind of go through the seasonality of things in our country, so maybe you're a marlin guy that has sat on the sidelines for turkey hunting, but you subscribe to Hook and Barrel and you get a great turkey hunting story. You've already kind of bought into the outdoors. So now you're coming from the ocean to the forests of Missouri to go get a turkey. And that's kind of the thing. I mean, and that's what you're doing a great job of. And I think more people need to look at that and go, man, we need to conserve the hunter. I mean, it's no reason to conserve all these species unless we have a shepherd for all of them. That shepherd is the outdoorsman. And so it's all for naught. We can have as many marlin as we want in the world, but if you don't have anglers out there, you're going to have long liners just running all over the place and decimating because you don't have an outdoorsman that speaks for the sport of it. And no, I love it, man. There's just so much you said there, but you and I are on similar missions, so I love it.
No, and I had this conversation yesterday on the podcast. We had the Billfish Foundation, which is a conservation organization to protect our resource, which is billfish. And what I said yesterday is, listen, before you can speak about conservation, you have to speak about passion, because the people that use the resource, that are passionate about the resource, are the people that are going to conserve it the best. And you have to share, you got to show people the sport. And then once they're passionate about it, they're going to want to conserve it.
Right.
And that speaks exactly to what you're saying is,
and they understand how to conserve it, because you can't conserve something unless you understand what makes it tick. And until you know what makes it tick, you're going to be lost. So you've got to get into the weeds and understand this is how the fish reacts. This is how the deer moves. This is the industry behind it. These are the things that are encroaching into its habitat or are affecting it. And you're not able to do any of that until you get that passion. And how do you get that passion? It's getting more into the field than that is through the conservation of the hunter.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely correct on that, because that hunter will know, hey, listen, we got to have this habitat. We can't be building on this because this is where these animals live. And listen, I'm not trying to poo-poo anybody that's building properties out there, but we need, these animals need a place to live, and hunters understand it. I use this example quite often is Ducks Unlimited, which to me is probably one of the most successful conservation groups out there.
They are.
They raise the money and they buy the wetlands for the ducks. Right. They love the resource. They want to manage it. They want to take care of it. And that's what they do.
But here's what people miss. And I think this on the very, I don't know, not to get in the political world, but the lefties kind of think about things is there's a huge difference between conservation and preservation, right? Preservation means we kill nothing. Conservation means we have to take certain things or certain animals or certain fish in order to allow populations to continue to grow. And I think that's where Ducks Unlimited does a great job. They understand the habitat, but they understand the hunter as well. And they understand the research that comes along with all of it. And so I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. Just because you're a hunter or an angler doesn't mean that you don't care about the animals or the fish. You absolutely do. But there's a huge difference between preservation, which means doing nothing or harvesting nothing, or conservation, where it means there are some animals that are going to come out of the population. But in order, that's in order to move the species forward.
And like, again, it's anytime you have an overpopulation of species, then that you have bigger problems.
Right.
There's sickness, there's illness, there's not enough food. And listen, it's not just killing an animal for killing an animal. It's an animal. You're harvesting an animal to eat it. Listen, in today's world where everybody wants, like you said earlier, no GMOs, no organic free or organic, and no preserve. Listen, this animal's been out there fighting for his life. And if you don't harvest it, at some day it's either going to die of a disease, die of starvation, or be attacked by an animal. So
that's what I don't understand. They all say, we're anti-hunting, but yet you go to the grocery store. That's even worse. That's terrible. I mean, those animals are not treated well. My wife won't eat farm-raised fish. I mean, just free, wild fish is much better than farm-raised. And
I won't buy store-bought fish.
Right.
Never mind whether it's farmed or fished. I'm so used to catching it myself or knowing who catches it. I won't buy fish at a store. That's just my, yeah. Well, meat, until I have my ranch where I can kill my own cow.
Yeah.
Because I like steak. But I'll tell you what, here in my house, since I went bison hunting, I haven't bought ground beef or ground turkey or ground anything. I've been eating bison and it's delicious.
You will be after shooting one for the next 3 years.
Well, I didn't personally harvest one because I knew I didn't want to come back with 800 pounds of meat.
Yeah.
So I said, guys, if you guys are okay, I'll take 20 pounds from each of you. Oh man, take it. I came back with 120 pounds of bison. You know how long I'm going to be eating bison for? A long time. Yeah. I'm going to be eating bison for a long time. So, John, on that note, is there anything else that you think we may have missed or you'd like to add before we wrap this thing up?
Well, if you had any questions that came in that you think are relevant enough to ask me, I would love to answer any of your viewers' questions. But most importantly, guys, if you want to subscribe to the magazine, which I encourage you to do, hookandbarrel.com. You could easily find the subscription tab. Subscribe there. Also, follow us on Instagram. Our handle's at Hook and Barrel Mag. And is spelled out, and we're always looking for followers on Instagram. Apparently Instagram makes the world go round. Everyone looks to that. And but no, subscribe to Hook and Barrel. I greatly appreciate it. But
I'm going to put a link of Hook and Barrel in the comment because there are a couple people that have asked. I see Miss Rebecca from the Pensacola Fishing Club, Big Game Club. She's asked Hook and Barrels with 1 L or 2 L's?
1.
There you go. There you go. Hookandbarrel.com.
Hookandbarrel.com. Our next issue drops. So if you subscribe now, you'll get the next one after that, which will be our 4-year anniversary issue, our July-August issue. And we're super excited. 4 years on market. You get over that 3-year hump, and this year's has just taken off. So it's been a blessing.
That's awesome. Now, Jeremy from Okinawa, Japan, he wants to know, do you guys ship internationally?
No, we don't, man.
Hey, get Cam to send it to his PO box and it'll get shipped over there. You got a way to do it.
Yeah. If I shipped them to Japan, I can only imagine what that shipping cost would be. We would go out of business.
I know. His boss Cam gets stuff shipped to his a US PO box and he'll get it forwarded.
There you go.
We'll make sure we get it to the shop in Okinawa for everybody to read. But Jeremy, thanks for asking that question. That's a great question.
That is a great question.
So, John, hold on 1 minute. I want to say thank you, number one, to you. Thank you for your time today. I truly appreciate it. I was really looking forward to this podcast and you didn't disappoint. I enjoyed it very, very much. And everybody that's watching now or listening, wherever you're listening from, thank you so much for giving us your time to listen to these fishing and hunting stories on the No BS World Tour. And I really appreciate you guys listening and to all the support. And we will check you guys